Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This episode we have Netflix 250th film from 2020. It's the musical comedy Eurovision Song Contest, the story of Fire and Saga, directed by David Dobkin, stars Will Ferrell, Rachel Adams, Dan Stevens, Melissanthi Mahut, Mikael Persbrandt, Olafur Darri Olafsson, Graham Norton, Demi Lovato, and Brosnan. I'm Jesse, and for our 250th, welcome back, MJ.
I'm back, Jesse. I like to pride myself as being a bit of a milestone man. So I came for the fact that it was a big episode. I haven't done a podcast with you since I had a look at this before. Uncorked. Remember Uncorked?
I sure do. That was released at the start of the year, so it's over 7 months.
So 221 that was number 221. So basically 30. You've done 30 pods without me, 30 movies without me. I've had a quick look through that list of the 30 that you've done, and I don't think I've known or heard of. Basically, there's a couple of them. There's a couple of bigger ones in there. I think The Five Bloods is in there and things like that. But generally, like, I don't know what I've missed.
Nothing. Don't worry. It's been a hard, long journey.
You've done very well. You should be very proud of yourself for getting to 250. It's a wonderful achievement. When you hit me up a while ago and said, "Hey, we've got 250. Do you want to come on?" I said, "What movie is it?" And you said it's Eurovision Story of Fire Saga. And you know what? This movie was one of those movies that, like, I knew I was always going to see. I was going to see this movie at some point in my life. When it came out, it's kind of like, not in a huge rush to see it, but I bet I'll see it. And I reckon a lot of people were exactly the same. So this was a great opportunity to actually tick that one off the box.
Good. I'm glad. I'm happy to actually hear someone listen to me rant instead of me just looking at a screen going, hope this makes sense.
Let's chat. We don't even have to talk at each other. Let's talk to each other and let's take something out of this movie.
Good. Well, we're going to say, if you haven't seen this and you want to give us a pause, come back later because we will spoil at various stages, but we start with the fast flicks, our quick little summary of what it's all about. What's Eurovision like for you?
I don't like to use actors' names in fast flicks, but I don't think you can do a fast flicks for this movie without mentioning Will Ferrell. And like the elevator pitch for this movie is that Will Ferrell is basically taking on a comedy about people making it to Eurovision against all odds. That's kind of what this movie is.
Yeah, similar for me. I haven't used names, but I've just said a Eurovision fan dreams of being on that stage one day and will stop at nothing together.
That's very true.
All right. Well, this is where we like to talk a little bit about how it ended up on Netflix. Should I kick this off?
Please do, Jesse. I feel unprepared. I feel out of whack. And I must admit, I haven't even read anything about it. So I'm going to be hearing this for the first time.
Good. Some of these things might surprise you. Usually, without someone else here, and there's been a lot of international films recently, so it's nice to actually have a little bit of context that I've got to share today. So we do kick off. This is obviously Will Ferrell. This is his idea, and his interest in Eurovision began because he's got a Swedish wife, and she took him to her cousin's house back in 1999. And the family turned the competition on TV, and since then he's just kept following it. So we jumped to 2014. And he actually traveled to Copenhagen in Denmark to watch the finale of the 2014 contest when Conchita won. So he's actually had that experience of being in the crowd and following this contest along, which is an interesting little thing to start with.
Should I know who Conchita is?
I feel like we should. Conchita is one of the big sort of names. One of the only sort of winners, apart from ABBA, that I sort of know, I think. Maybe
so they actually did stuff after Eurovision.
Well, Conchita's in this film as well. One of the when there's that big medley, Conchita's a very famous winner of this show. But we'll keep going. So to prep for the film, Ferrell, he attended the 2018 contest as well in Portugal as a part of the Swedish delegation, which gave him access to follow the show from the start to the finish with the rehearsals and all that sort of stuff. He spoke backstage with the contestants. And then we jumped to 2018 of June, and he announced that he was going to star, co-write, and produce this film. And Netflix picked it up then. And then we head forward again to March of 2019, where the director, David Dobkin, signed on. Rachel McAdams joined the cast in May. And then McAdams and Ferrell were spotted at the dress rehearsals for the 2019 Eurovision Song Contest in Israel. And then this stage was then later rebuilt on a soundstage in London. So, a lot of the shots from this Tel Aviv version in Israel of the audience and the crowd were actually used in the film too, which is, they've done a lot of work to get this up and going.
Yeah.
Jump to 2019 August. Brosnan jumps on board. Demi Lovato filming in Edinburgh and Glasgow, as well as Iceland. And then some further filming was done in England at the Warner Brothers studio, and this is the second Netflix film that was filmed in that studio after Mowgli, the legend of the jungle that we covered on the show a while ago. This was meant to be released in May of 2020 on Netflix to coincide with the 2020 Eurovision contest, but COVID hit and that contest was cancelled. So Netflix held onto it and then said a month later, June 26th, cool, we're going to put it out there. Netflix pretty happy with the results. I think first weekend top streamed item on Netflix in the USA reached #1, as well as other regions around the world. Second weekend, bit of a drop though, dropped down to #8. So a lot of people watched it the first week of release.
It came out at the right time, right? Like this is the midst of lockdowns and nothing, especially cinema lockdowns, nothing's coming out. All of a sudden we got this brand new Will Ferrell movie. It's straight to your TV at home that you're already paying a subscription for. Yeah.
Correct. So I guess some interesting sort of facts, I guess, after that cancellation of the actual contest in 2020, the broadcasters around the world who usually have this contest didn't have much to go. So they actually picked up and were able to air this film. A couple of broadcasters, usually the broadcasters that are affiliated with the content of Eurovision. So here in Australia, SBS, who usually plays the contest live here, they actually played it on the 14th and 29th of May, the year later in 2021. So this film was actually broadcast on Australian linear television.
Was it really? Across the world, Netflix was like, yep, cool, go for it.
Yeah, for 2021. So that was pretty good. So the actors, they all put on Icelandic accents for the film. They had dialect coaches. The production in Iceland, apparently they spent about $3.5 million, which the Icelandic government actually gave them $1 million to help cover costs as a part of an incentive. So that's cool too. Touched on this before. 13 past Eurovision contestants were in this film, and a lot of other little segments that sort of play along with that idea of references to the show, like that running hamster wheel. That was a Ukrainian entry from 2014. Rachel McAdams didn't actually sing in this film. I think that's pretty obvious when you do watch it. That's a Swedish singer. Her name's Molly Sandén, and she was a part of the Junior Eurovision Song Contest in 2006. So, pretty funny, I guess. Instruments not allowed in Eurovision, live instruments anyway. So the plug-in instrument ideas, and that's part of the end of this narrative, I guess, too, because Will Ferrell's character at the end wouldn't be allowed a piano on stage. So would have been disqualified anyway.
How does that work? They have to have pre-recorded music.
Yep.
It's all about
it's all about the performance. Mentioned before, released on Netflix 26th of June 2020. $35 million production cost altogether, so on the high end for a comedy. Actually, if we look at the awards for this one, it had 28 nominations and 6 wins, so pretty well received from the awards community. The biggest one, this had an Oscar nominee. This was nominated. Best achievement in music for motion picture, which is crazy. So lots of other awards, nominations for best compilation soundtrack at the Grammys as well. Best song at the Critic Choice Awards, best musical at the Hollywood Critics Association, where it won best original song there as well. And then we've also got the Kids' Choice Awards, Will Ferrell, favorite comedy actor, all that sort of stuff. So pretty well received here.
I mean, we know 2020 was a slim year for movies coming out. So obviously there wasn't a heap of competition as there would have been in other years. But you know what? There's a lot of original music in this. There's a lot of effort that went into the music in it. So it holds up. Good.
Let's look at the consensus. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film?
Yeah, I've got the IMDb score at 6.5 out of 10 on 99,000 ratings. That number really surprised me, but then obviously the context of it all made so much sense that many people watched it. Letterboxd 2.7 out of 5, so a lot lower, unsurprisingly lower, but 119,000 people have logged it on Letterboxd. So no surprise that a lot of eyeballs during this time. As I said, like regardless of the pandemic, Will Ferrell having just an original Netflix film, not even even if it was just any streaming service going straight to streaming, people are probably going to check it out. It's such an easy conversion. So, but they didn't love it. It was all right.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the big thing on Letterboxd too, like 119,000 people gave it a rating. And if you looked at how many people had actually logged it as being watched, it goes up to about 174,000. So
yeah,
that's a lot of people that like obviously bored and at stages. That's crazy. And I think we look at Rotten Tomatoes. Critics obviously didn't have much to look at either, because there were 182 critics that had reviewed this film. It sits at a 63%, so it's still it's fresh. It's on the fresh side. Audience was even higher at 77, and that was on more than 2,500 ratings, which is super high on the Rotten Tomatoes ratings. Yeah.
I mean, that's the critics, right? Think about the critics on this. They're generally reviewing. There's honestly probably 10 new movies a week that they've got to be doing, and that's probably 20 movies that they're ignoring. In 2020, that number just wasn't there. So whenever there's a new movie, they might as well jump at it, particularly a Will Ferrell, Rachel McAdams movie.
Yes, and we've sort of been talking about the Metacritic ratings as well recently. This one was sort of an interesting thing. With Metacritic, they have, it's either like green, yellow, a traffic light system, green, yellow, red.
Yep.
And the critics rated out of 100 and the audience is out of 10. So the critics had it in yellow in the middle range on a 50, and that was on 39 critic reviews, which is quite a lot on here. The audience was very surprising because it started at 7.7, which is in that green section. That was on 370 reviews. So I think if we looked at the Rotten Tomato audience and the Metacritic audience and even IMDb, audiences kind of like this.
So how walk me through Metacritic? How are people contributing to that?
So Metacritic, they take only a specific section of the critical media critics for the critic view, and then audience, anyone can jump on and log it on. So similar sort of scale with IMDb, I guess.
Yeah, cool. That's positive.
Yeah. I had a percentage match for this one.
Oh gosh, if I did, I didn't check it.
Check it. I had 82%. 82%. Netflix is saying I'm going to like this.
Netflix knows this guy loves Netflix original movies. He's seriously watching a new one every week.
Well, let's jump into it. What's your early thoughts on this one?
I mean, I really like Will Ferrell, like most people do. I like Rachel McAdams, but like I said to you, I didn't really have any interest in watching this when it came out. But as I said, it's one of those movies that I knew I'd see at some point, right? But I must admit, I did think it was pretty ordinary. I think that the Will Ferrell humor, it didn't translate. Like, I don't know if it was the accent, I don't know if it was the story or his character in general, because I could see the humor there. I could see like how historically I'd find these things that he's doing, or these idiosyncrasies that he's got, or these little unscripted moments that pop out. I could see them there, and I could see that I'd normally find them funny, but it was like they were stuck behind this invisible barrier. And I honestly think it is the accent that they've got in my way. So that first hour was just a train wreck for me, just trying to work my way through it and trying to find it funny, because I'm like, I could see it there, but I didn't find it funny. I think it pulled through all that a little bit. I think it relied nicely on some really familiar and comfortable underdog tropes and these rom-com vibes to bring out the feels a little bit by the end. So not all was lost, but I just couldn't get through. And I'm calling it the accent. I just don't think that translated with Will Ferrell's humor. I don't know. Is that just a bad performance? Is that just my take on it? I don't know, but it didn't work for me.
This is funny because when I loaded it up to watch, I remembered, I watched the first half hour of this with my wife when it came out.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did it say resume playing?
And I remember why we stopped. This is absolute garbage. There is not a laugh to be had. This is complete and this is horrendous. There is not one redeeming. Well, sorry, that's pretty bad. But there's not much to redeem from this film. It's for such talented people. Rachel McAdams sort of is the only thing that sort of holds this film together, because without that performance from her, I think this could have been even worse.
And do you find Will Ferrell funny generally? Like, you think he's funny?
Generally, yeah. Generally. I mean, that I feel like maybe early Will Ferrell was funny, and more recent, I can't think of a lot of recent stuff that has actually hit the mark for me, to be honest.
He's pretty picky though. He's not like he's punching out heaps and heaps of movies. He's more of a cameo kind of guy now, isn't he?
Yeah, and this isn't a spoiler or anything. I've seen if you think about the new Barbie movie that's coming out, he's in that, and that's not a spoiler. He's been at the premiere and all that sort of stuff. Yep. You look at that role, and like you just mentioned, it's almost like a cameo role. It's almost like, I'll jump in here to try and get a couple of laughs. And at times, the Lego movie, you think of these films where he just plays these over the top characters that are meant to be funny. And I don't know, can he hold a whole film to himself anymore? I don't think he can.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. And like, you think about Anchorman, which is like his crown jewel of,
I love Anchorman.
Literally floor to floor laughs from start to finish. Like it's such a tough thing to do, to maintain that level of humor, and that's why Anchorman's so rare. But it felt like he was kind of trying to do that with his character, and it just did not work. And can you see what I was saying, where like I can sort of see the Will Ferrell humor there. I could see it, but it wasn't funny. Like I knew what he was doing, and I'd like, I guess I would have laughed at that in a different context, but I just didn't. So
maybe we're older, and that's what it is. We're past that age now where that type of humor we find funny.
Maybe, but if I rewatched Anchorman, or even like the campaign with Zach Galifianakis, like I find Will Ferrell really, really a different character, but really, really funny in that. I don't know. I just this was there, but it didn't work. I guess that's the only way I can put it.
Good. Well, let's talk about some characters. Fill us in. Go.
I'm glad we agree.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, Lars, like as a character, I mean, he's the dreamer. He's got this all-consuming dream to go to Eurovision, which is completely blinded by the fact that it's an insane dream. But hey, that's what you do in these movies, right? You make the impossible possible. So you can live with that. Well, it does feel like he's just this like stunted man-child who can't get a grasp on reality. But look, in the movie, he weirdly learns about the love and the selflessness that can help him reach this fulfillment that he's actually reaching for in life, as opposed to what he thinks Eurovision is going to deliver for him. And whilst he comes such a long way from the Lars we see at the start to the Lars we see at the end, but it's kind of a really bizarre and unbelievable journey that gets him there. Like all of a sudden he rolls up at the end, and we've done the spoiler alert, obviously, but rolls up at the end for the final song, and he's just like a different person. It's like, yeah, well, what did you really go through to get to this point? I'm glad you're there, but I'm not really buying it.
And I think part of that unbelievability of that was almost, you've got this underlying idea that everyone sees him as a joke. Everyone in town, pretty much, as well as his father, and even that turn of his father from "what you're doing, I hate" to you're amazing now. It was just like such a quick little thing. It wasn't like a progressive sort of change in mind from his father to believe that what he was doing was his passion and his dream. It was just like, oh yeah, cool. So you're famous now. You've done a good thing for us. I like you now. I don't know. I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Look, there was kind of like the little one or two people in town that kind of got behind him, and then that kind of helped the pack mentality of like, hey, this guy's kind of like doing what he loves, and he's putting us on the map to some extent. So I didn't mind that as much, but I mean, it's such a small part of the story.
Good. All right. What about Sigrid?
Firstly, really bothered me the age gap between these two, and the idea that Rachel McAdams, like the stereotypical girl next door that everyone loves, is so into this Will Ferrell, who is 11 years older than her. That was already a bit jarring. But in a sense, she was blinded by, her own, I guess you call it love for Lars, which was weird, but anyway. But she behind all that, she didn't quite understand her own talent. She didn't quite understand any of her own ambition, and probably more so than Lars, I didn't mind her journey, if you want to call it that, because she gets to a place where she does start to stick up for herself. She does start to change her own actions and give herself some more direction. And funnily enough, the place that she's in at the end of the movie doesn't stray too far away from where she was at the start of the movie. But she gets the things that she wanted that whole time. So obviously she wanted, to be with Lars. She wanted to start a family with him, which, was never a huge stretch for her to do. And that's where she ends up. So that's kind of nice. But she does have a much more believable journey to get there.
Yeah, I agree, because I think the idea that I took away was that she felt like she owed him because she was a mute, and through the singing, he taught her how to sing and how to speak and become a human being. But in that same way, like the way he treated her and the way he held her back, like, surely as a human being, you'd be like, you wouldn't go to talk to some elves and be like, you know, he's horrible to me, but I still want to have kids and a family with him. So it was a weird setup.
Yeah, it feels like we missed so much that happened between these two.
Yeah, could have been
a 4 hour really movie. Important to understand this relationship. I'm glad it wasn't, but like where we see them at, I'm like, I don't really get it. But we have to assume that they've been through so much together to make her feel that way. And his obliviousness to it was just bizarre.
Yeah. Any other characters you want to talk about?
I just want to talk about Alexander quickly, because funnily enough, I actually thought Dan Stevens was great in this. I thought he played this role really well. And maybe it's me having a little bit less familiarity with him than obviously Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams that makes me take that leap with him. But I don't really think so. I think he just nailed this character. And I thought he was quite funny. But what I like about the character is that he wasn't a full villain. So like, you know, he's kind of standing in the way of the Lars Sigrid happy ending. But despite being a little bit selfish and deceptive, and he's obviously got his own things going on the side, he's generally a good guy, and he doesn't have this villain's crash landing by the end of it. And I kind of like that move, that you didn't really need anything bad. You just kind of needed something to appear that maybe it wasn't going to be all rosy for the two leads, without actually having to burn and trash another character in the meantime. So I thought that was done quite well.
I think it was done quite well too, in the fact that Lars felt really threatened by him, but he didn't really need to. So it sort of showed some more insecurities to do with Lars as well, and who he was as a person, because, you know, they make it quite clear that he's probably not into the female gender. And I'm not sure that it was a good insight into Sigrid, in that she probably couldn't, you know, maybe she's just so oblivious to everything that she couldn't work that out. But it sort of did show us more about Lars and his insecurities too. But yeah, good performance. I don't know. I just found all of the songs, but this is probably more later on. But yes, great performer. I don't know that all these songs and dance and stuff were needed as much. I know it's a Eurovision Song Contest, but they were some of the things that sort of, whenever he sang or I saw him on stage, I was like, this character's really annoying me again. Anyway. Any other characters?
Yeah. No, there's no others that deemed too much.
I just had that Victor Carlson, that governor dude from the Iceland, the Central Bank of Iceland. He's the guy that doesn't want Iceland to win. Yeah, Eurovision, the bad guy. I just thought a lot of his pieces of him being the person that's trying to kill them off at times, I don't know, I just thought it was really disjointed as a character. And I feel like if you're going to make it so obvious someone's the villain, then just be clear with what they're doing. Don't try and make it out like it's a decoy for the audience. I'm not sure that's more of not the performance, but the character. I think that's about it. Nothing else to say. I did find it weird that
it really did feel like a weird decoy.
Yeah. I did find it weird that Eric, Lars' dad, ended up with Sigrid's mum in the end. I thought that wasn't needed either.
Really weird.
Yeah.
That's like that Will Ferrell humor, right? Coming into play from a story perspective. Like, this is crazy, but like, hey, crazy is what we do.
Yeah. All right. Director David Dobkin. Pretty interesting bio. Like, the music video clips for like Tupac, Coolio, Maroon 5, Elton John. Did Shanghai Nights with Jack Chan and Owen Wilson, Fred Claus, The Change Up, The Judge, Wedding Crashers, and the Wedding Crashers sequel. Just a mixed bag, absolute mixed bag.
The Judge does not fit in everything that you just said.
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah, I know. Like, but you could go like, you got Tupac music video clips and Coolio, and then you jump to Maroon 5, then you jump to Elton John, and you jump to like action with Jackie Chan, and you're doing dramas, The Judge, and then you're doing Wedding Crashers. Like, it's a huge difference in a lot of genre style jumping.
Yeah, some good movies in there though.
Yeah. Scenes. What are some scenes that you liked in this one, if there are any?
I got 3, and I don't know, this might go against what you were saying about the songs, but I liked that song at the party, which is, as you said, I think they were all a lot of previous like winners or performers of Eurovision there. I actually picked up on that, I reckon, about 3/4 of the way through. I'm like, these must actually, you know what? The bearded lady, she's Eurovision. That's what made me. Is it really?
Yeah.
That's what made me click. I'm like, I think she's from Eurovision. So I'm like, they must all be from Eurovision. But I thought that was really good. I thought that had those really nice Pitch Perfect vibes when they do those song
mashups.
I thought that was really good. I enjoyed that. It's the first part of the movie that I was enjoying. this is the only bit of humor that hit for me. And even then, when I say it hit, it was just like a chuckle every time. But I enjoyed the recurring joke of, "Are you brother and sister?" And Lars always responded with, "Probably not." Like, I just thought probably not is such a funny response to that. Like, it's such a definitive question. And I like the final song. The final song that they sung for it. They definitely got that right with the feels.
Yeah, I'll agree. The final performance from Sigrid, that was one of the things I thought was okay. The only other thing that I kind of thought was okay, I didn't find the stuffing of his pants to make his penis look bigger funny, but when he was going through the crowd and hitting people's faces, I thought that was humorous. So
it is real.
All right,
that's true.
What are some things that you didn't like on this?
I've got nothing specific from the first hour because I thought that I was going to sit there and say the whole movie was trash. Yep. So I just didn't bother. Then when I thought maybe we're going somewhere with this, it really derailed that scene where Lars was telling everyone that he wants to have sex with them. That was, again, maybe the Will Ferrell humor that normally works elsewhere. It did not work one bit. Thought it was ridiculous. And like the main thing I don't like, and you touched on this when you were talking about that exec, that whole story, you're right, didn't work, didn't fit. It was this weird decoy thing, even when they kept having flashbacks from that singer who kept trying to tell them that he was the bad guy. And then at the end, she's like, he's the bad guy. And he's like, yeah, I know, I already killed him. When they killed him off, that scene was ridiculous. That was so insane. But the whole storyline added nothing to this movie. So could have gone without. This movie was a pretty big 2 hours. It could have gone without anything of that, and we wouldn't have changed it at all. So, they got that very, very wrong. All
right. Couple of little things that we sort of agree, disagree on, I guess, in passing. So for me, the first, like you mentioned, the start rubbish, but there's a moment where Lars and Sigrid, they're sitting on this bench and she wants a kiss, and he's like, I want to focus on music. And then he does that fake phone call thing. It's the mayor of winning. He wants to say something to you. I was like, this is something that Will Ferrell, maybe in an American accent, in America might work. It just didn't, like, I think probably
you're right.
Talking about the accent and the locations. I didn't like the whole idea of Lars and Sigrid being a brother and sister. I didn't find it funny because I think it was used too much. I think if you make that joke maybe once or twice, I feel like it was used, like it was a beat like multiple times that just overused. The breakaway song at the party that you like, I believe in love, the Blackbird Peas, I got a feeling. I did not like it at all. I just thought it completely took away from some of the moments they were trying to draw upon. Like, I was more interested in where were each character going to go? Where's Sigrid going to go? Was Lars going to realize what's going on? I was more into that than this big breakout song.
I wasn't.
Took away from.
I wasn't into that at all. So the breakout song was a nice relief.
You mentioned too that moment where Lars and Sigrid having that argument, and then talked about sleeping with everyone in the studio. Agree, complete rubbish. Graham Norton, love the guy. Talk show host, UK talk show host. He does the commentary in the UK for Eurovision. I understand why he's there. It felt like he was like in a box on Mars doing this commentary from 1,000 million miles away. It just felt so out of place and not connected. That was such poor production in his segments.
And
true. The Americans, just the Americans and the idea, everything to do with them, their race across the city, especially to get Lars to Eurovision, was pointless. Definitely. And then to have them back at the end and the earlier moment at that moment I mentioned before where they're sitting by that fountain, I think, like, it's just not needed.
That's right. They're at the end as well.
Yeah. Themes, ideas. What's it trying to say?
I should say, before I watched this movie, because we tried the brother and sister thing, two things. I thought it was based on a true story. Just assumed it was. And then when it started, and I didn't want to check this during the movie because I didn't want to see a spoiler. But I realized pretty quickly it probably wasn't. And secondly, I assumed it was based on a true story about a brother and sister that were in a band and they somehow won Eurovision. That's what I thought it was the whole time.
You've been heavily disappointed.
If it was. So themes. Look, obviously the kind of crux of this movie is around faith and dreams, and I think they do this really explicitly with the elves or the fairies, whichever they were. That's like that kind of blind faith in something. But then also the fact that like this whole thing is prefaced by Lars's dream to make it to Eurovision, as ridiculous as it is. So the idea of following your dreams and trying to get there is kind of applauded to some extent. And then also being who you are, no matter what others think, and celebrating that. Don't just be who you are and try and hide in the shadows. Be who you are and be as big as proud as you want. And if you don't celebrate that, then nobody else will. So those are really nice things to preface a movie around.
I agree. Yeah, that whole idea of not giving up on your dreams, not quitting. The lengths you'll go to for success to win. Sometimes you're going to hurt people on the way too, but you got to learn from those mistakes. There's this website called Kids in Mind, and this was a list of all the themes that they listed off that were in this film. So you've got European cultures, beliefs, global dislike of Americans, singing contests, rivalries, money and power, winning and losing, determination, respect, acceptance, families, fathers and sons, love, relationships, and pansexualism. There we go.
Sure. The global hatred of America is funny.
I thought that's funny, so I included it. But what did you take away from this one?
Yeah, look, this was a big swing, and it was a pretty big miss. I think it's definitely good that it landed where it landed in terms of being a streaming product. And look, we know that when big stars appear on Netflix originals or streaming, direct to streaming anyway, it's going to get eyeballs. As I said, you're already paying for a subscription. The idea of seeing a Will Ferrell movie on a service that you're already paying for is a pretty easy conversion. So if this movie goes to the big screen, it dies a very, very quick death. Similarly with what you said, it was the number one Netflix movie the weekend it came out, and then it dropped to number 8 the next week. People saw it and was like, oh, I don't know if you need to watch this one. But it's hard enough for comedies to make their mark in cinemas these days. And this certainly would not have been bucking that trend.
Yep. Only thing I learned, take away from this film, is I learned that Rachel McAdams is Canadian. That was my takeout with the credits, and they had the flags with each of the actors. Didn't know she was Canadian.
That's right. That was a nice touch. I feel like I knew that, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's all you took out of the film.
Yep.
No, you got to take something, right?
Correct. I had to struggle for that one. Did you jump on IMDb? Check anyone out?
Yeah, I did. I'm going to have to really carefully read his name. Olafur Darri Olafsson. So he played Neil, the Icelandic government kind of like Eurovision exec, not the bad guy, the main guy. He's in heaps of stuff. He's got a very familiar face. He's in stuff that I've seen, like The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Crimes of Grindelwald. I think I remember him from Murder Mystery, the obviously Netflix original film. Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston film. But he's just got that face, that, with a beard. There you go. So I was very satisfied when I saw that. I'm like, I've seen like 10 things he's in.
Good. No, I didn't get on at all. And I don't have any questions for you. Did you have any questions for me?
Well, I did have a question around the accents and whether you had an issue with them, but I feel like we kind of covered that. But I guess you didn't explicitly say, did you have an issue with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams' accent?
It's tricky. I mean, you're playing Icelandic competitors, so you got to have something. So I think that's the trick. Is it's hard, isn't it? Unless you make a completely false story and have Americans in the competition for the first time that had never been in there, then maybe you'd change it up. But you've got to do some sort of act.
Or you hire Icelandic actors.
But then you don't have the big names to draw people in.
No, I know. Are you a Eurovision fan at all?
Not like seeing bits and pieces, especially when we had Australian contestants in there at stages. So when like Guy Sebastian was on there, I tuned in and things like that.
Are we not still? I thought we still.
Yeah, we still do. Yeah, we still do. Yeah, they're just not as big names. Yeah. Oh, sorry, not. Maybe I'm just not in the popular culture context anymore. But yeah.
Oh, I'm not. But how do you qualify? Like, who chooses this stuff?
So it has to. There's like rules to it. Don't quote me on it, but they've got to have an actual competition in Australia to determine who the representative is. So they usually do it on the Gold Coast. I think it's like 10 people are put up, they all sing, and then I think they air it on SBS, and then the Australian public has to vote. I think,
oh, cool.
or the industry votes on, or the country votes on who goes through. I think that's how it works.
That's pretty cool. It's a nice idea.
Yeah. All right. I think we're ready to wrap it up. I think we're ready to come up with a rating out of 5. Give us an average. Finish off with your final thoughts.
Yeah, it's as I said, it's a swing and a miss. This is a big idea. It could have gone either way. I think it went the wrong way. but it still made you feel a little bit for the characters. All in all, though, it was a pretty tough watch, and I would not be able to recommend it to anybody, to be honest. I think it'd be a hard sell. So I did still sneak it up to 2 stars, though. It still snuck 2 stars, which is generous. Nice. It feels generous.
Yeah. Not an inch of me that wants to revisit any part of this film ever again. Didn't find it humorous, let alone funny. It dragged like that. You mentioned it before. That runtime really brings it down. I think the biggest thing is I'm super disappointed this is that 250th episode. It would have been nice to have a good film. I'm giving it 1.5, which gives us a 1.75 out of 5. So pretty low from us. Pretty low.
I actually have to say I watched this across 2 nights. This is probably a more sign of my life right now with a newborn, but I did this in like hour stints.
Turned it into a mini series.
Yeah.
We got socials: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Question. And you've already asked this question anyway, but have you ever watched Eurovision? I have, yes.
I don't think I don't think I'd hate it, but I feel like I just don't know about it enough. Maybe when Guy Sebastian was on, I feel like it got a fair bit of buzz, but I couldn't even tell you when it's on.
Yeah. I think it's a big European thing. I've got an Italian friend,
obviously,
like my age, who they have family gatherings to sit around the TV and watch it and stuff like that. So
love that.
It's
like the grand final.
Yeah, true. Good. All right. Well, next week back for an international film. It's an Italian comedy drama from 2020 called Under the Riccione Sun, or in Italian, it's Sotto il Solo di Riccone. It's directed by You Nuts with an exclamation mark at the end. So one word: YOU, capital NUTS. You Nuts. Stars Cristiano Camo, Ludovico Martino, Lorenzo Zuzzolo, and Isabella Ferrari. That's what we've got. I'm sure you're not here next week, so enjoy the week off.
Yeah, look, I mean, as much as I do enjoy You Nuts' work, I might give that one a miss. If you have a chance to choose a stage name, let's not pretend that's his real name, or her real name, sorry. If you have a chance to choose it, that's an absurd choice of a name.
Horrendous.
And I hope you go into depth on it next week.
Oh, I'll explain what I'm sure I'll explain what You Nuts means.
Okay, good.
It's been great. I've enjoyed this. So it feels a bit of normality back to life. So thanks for being here.
You're welcome, mate. I'm gonna have to do a bit of picking and choosing on that list of movies to see what works for me.
Sounds good. I would love to have you back soon. So as always, see you. Hopefully, I'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here. Good to be back.